The haunted hospital wing. Lila hated working the night shift at the old hospital. The building was nearly a century old, and at night it felt it. Pipes groaned behind the walls like something alive. The lights flickered without reason. The elevators occasionally opened to empty floors no one had selected. And at the very end of the east corridor stood the sealed double doors of Ward C. The abandoned wing. 15 years ago, a fire had torn through it. Official reports blamed faulty oxygen lines. Electrical sparks. Tragic, unavoidable. But rumors never matched the report. The fire had started in multiple rooms at once. The sprinkler system hadn't activated. Several exit doors had been locked from the outside. 8 patients died. 2 nurses. 1 orderly. The investigation closed quietly. Too quietly. Lila didn't believe in ghost stories. But she believed in cover-ups. And she believed in the look on older staff members' faces whenever Ward C was mentioned, not fear. Guilt. When her patient began crashing and she was told the only spare oxygen tank was logged in old storage, something in her stomach twisted. Ward C storage. She didn't argue. She grabbed a flashlight and went. The air changed the moment she stepped inside the sealed wing. It wasn't just cold. It felt occupied. Dust coated the floor, undisturbed for years, yet as she walked, she noticed something that made her slow down. Footprints. Not hers. Bare. Blackened. Leading deeper into the hallway. They were fresh. She followed them without meaning to. Past burned patient rooms. Past a nurse's station frozen in time, paperwork still scattered as if abandoned mid-shift. Her light flickered across a bulletin board. Pinned there was a newspaper clipping, yellowed and curling at the edges. She stepped closer. Whistleblower nurse claims negligence in Ward C. The article described a nurse who had reported unsafe oxygen line repairs and illegal cost-cutting measures. She had filed complaints just days before the fire. Her name? Lila Hartwell. Her breath caught. That was her name. She leaned closer. The photograph attached to the article showed a nurse standing outside the hospital 15 years ago. The nurse had her face. But the haircut was outdated. The uniform old-fashioned. The date on the clipping confirmed it. 15 years ago. That's not possible, she whispered. A sound answered her. Breathing. Right behind her. The storage room door slammed shut as before. The oxygen tank stood at the back. But now she saw something she hadn't noticed earlier. There were multiple tanks. And the valves on several had been deliberately loosened. Her pulse roared in her ears. The figure emerged from the shadows, burned, twisted, wrong. But now she recognized the uniform beneath the charred flesh. It was a nurse's uniform. Her uniform. The thing tilted its head. And in its cracked, layered voice it spoke more clearly this time. You told them. Memories crashed into her mind like a tidal wave. Meetings in the administrator's office. Threats disguised as warnings. A supervisor telling her to let it go. A late shift alone in Ward C. The smell of gas. The fire hadn't been an accident. It had been containment. The whistleblower had been inside when it started. She had pounded on the locked doors. She had screamed for help. And no one came. Because they had been told not to. The burned patients hadn't just died in a tragedy. They had been collateral damage. Silenced along with her. Lila staggered backward, shaking her head violently. No. I'm not dead. The burned figure stepped closer. Neither were the others. They began emerging from between the shelves. Patients with oxygen masks melted to their faces. A child clutching a charred blanket. A nurse with blistered hands fused around a door handle. They weren't attacking her. They were surrounding her. Waiting. You stayed, the voices whispered in unison. The room began to change. The dust vanished. The shelves straightened. The fluorescent lights flickered to life overhead. Suddenly, the storage room wasn't abandoned anymore. It was active. Bright. Alarms blaring. Smoke filling the air. She could hear screaming, real, deafening screaming. She looked down at her hands. They were blistering. Skin cracking. Peeling. Heat roared around her. She was back inside the fire. No, she screamed, clawing at the door. It wouldn't open. Just like before. Through the small window she saw figures on the other side. Hospital administrators. Security. Watching. Not helping. One of them calmly slid a deadbolt into place. The memory locked into place. She had died here. And the hospital had reopened months later. Rebranded. Renamed. Staff replaced. History buried. Ward C sealed. But the dead had remained. Waiting. Suddenly, everything went black. Lila burst back into the active hospital corridor, clutching the oxygen tank. Her colleagues rushed toward her. "You were gone for 20 minutes. What happened?" She stared at them. Something felt wrong. The lights seemed too dim. The air too thick. And their faces. Their faces looked slightly blurred around the edges. Like smoke. She looked down at her hands. They were fine. Smooth. Unburned. But faint black ash fell from her fingertips onto the floor. No one else seemed to notice. Down the corridor, a patient monitor began to beep erratically. Flatline. A nurse ran past her toward room 312. Moments later, a scream. Lila turned slowly toward the sealed doors of Ward C. They were no longer sealed. They stood slightly open. A thin line of smoke curled from the crack. And inside the darkness beyond, she saw them. The burned patients. Standing silently. Watching her. Waiting. She looked back at her coworkers. They were still speaking, but she couldn't hear them anymore. Only the crackling of distant flames. A voice whispered beside her ear. Not threatening. Not angry. Relieved. "You're back." The hospital lights flickered violently. For one split second, the entire active ward transformed. Walls blackened. Ceilings charred. Patients burned in their beds. Staff frozen mid-scream. Then it snapped back to normal. Everyone else continued as if nothing had happened. Except now. Lila no longer cast a reflection in the polished floor tiles. Her breathing matched theirs. Slow. Wet. Mechanical. The oxygen tank in her hands felt warm. And beneath the inventory sticker, new words had appeared. Ward C staff, L. Hartwell. She slowly turned toward the open doors. The living hospital behind her continued its routine. Unaware. Unbothered. Unchanged. But Ward C was no longer abandoned. And it was no longer sealed. It was expanding. Room by room. Shift by shift. And Lila stepped back inside willingly. The doors closed behind her. This time, they locked from the inside.